On today's show, I'm bringing back a returning guest. He was on my show back in September of this year. We're talking about Global Trac Solutions, Inc., a.k.a. Psychedelic, if you will. They trade on the OTC markets, and if you are on there, you can find them under the ticker symbol PSYC. And with us today, to bring us up to speed, is the CEO of the company, Mr. David Flores. David, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back. Thank you so much.
For my new listeners, if you would, just give us a real brief understanding of who you guys are.
Sure, yeah. So, I think, for some of the new listeners out there, people that are coming across Global Trac Solutions for the first time, Global Trac is a company here that really is part of a group of companies that are within the public markets and that are really the first in many respects to be, openly involved here with the space in medicinal psychedelics. And so, with that, we have our flagship website, Psychedelic Spotlight, which is a digital media platform providing news, information, resources, exclusive interviews, all related to this emerging space of psychedelics. And so, it's really our entry point into the industry. Many people who are out there maybe have been familiar with Global Trac Solutions know that, we've been synonymous with the moniker, a diversified holding company. And so during this period of repositioning and transitioning, moving out of the cannabis space and into the psychedelic space, we are looking to reemerge as a legitimate, diversified holding company. That is my focus, and all of it being focused here, within the emerging space of psychedelics, where we've got a lot of exciting growth potential.
I would definitely ditto that, because my research over the weekend, I can't believe how much momentum is building up in the last couple of weeks in the medical psychedelic space. That being said, as a public company within the emerging psychedelic space, how is Global Trac Solutions leveraging the momentum to increase its presence within the public marketplace and investment community?
Right. So, we're fortunate here where, over the last couple of months, we've really seen that momentum pick up. And a lot of it's highlighted by the success of the IPO from Compass Pathways. And, them going out and, really becoming the first psychedelic-based company to actually see themselves based on their market cap at a valuation of over $1 billion. And the fact that they shattered all expectations going into that IPO, raising over $127 million with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. And what it's done is it's really sent a message to the investment community in the public markets that the psychedelic industry has arrived. It's here. It's ready for this next phase of growth. It's been an industry in a space for the better part of the last 2 or 3 years. It's sort of been progressing at a steady pace, but make no mistake about it, it's here. And so for us at Global Trac Solutions, being able to capitalize and leverage off of the momentum that we are seeing here, it's important, because I'd like to think that we're in a very unique position here as a company to be able to get involved here in this space early on at a time, where, we can come in and claim our stake here in this industry and establish an identity for ourselves before you have this wave of companies starting to get involved, which I expect to see. We saw it in the early years of the cannabis space. So for us, this is about establishing our network, building an identity here for us, and being able to, really create a network and, identify the opportunities that make sense that we want to incorporate into our business model. Again, with the goal and the objective of creating diversification that's going to drive value for our shareholders and our stakeholders. And we're talking, not just short-term value. We're talking long-term sustainable value. That's my focus. That's what I'm motivated on. And so being able to assess the landscape here within this industry right now as it's still developing, it really creates an opportunistic, position for us right now. And I'm trying to absolutely make the most of it to identify the right opportunities that make sense to incorporate into our business model. Again, understanding that we're in this for the long haul. We're not out there trying to just get our hands on every opportunity that's out there. It's got to make sense for what we are trying to establish and develop here. And so that's really what it's about. And, obviously seeing the momentum here, it helps. It lends a level of credibility and legitimacy to the industry. So of course, that's something we absolutely intend on, leveraging here.
The company's flagship website is Psychedelic Spotlight. Seems to be developing an impressive identity within the psychedelic industry. Would you like to share some of the progress that's been made recently with your company and that particular website?
Yeah, of course. So for those who may not be familiar with it, we just launched Psychedelic Spotlight back in May of this year, and I'd like to really that I'm encouraged with the progress that we have made in that relatively short amount of time. It has developed into a brand and a name that is now familiar amongst other leaders and other advocates and other companies within the psychedelic community. And, we've accomplished that by going out there and really being somewhat aggressive in expanding our network and connecting with other leaders and other companies and featuring them, in interviews and developing, thought-provoking, fact-driven content that we're putting out there that really is, lending to the advocacy of psychedelics at a time right now where we are really trying to push it into the mainstream. And so for us, now that we've got the foundation sort of established under the digital media platform for Psychedelic Spotlight, we're looking at ways to fortify it. And so we brought in a digital marketing company, Sun City Advising out of San Diego. Their focus is really on optimizing SEO, which, as you know, is incredibly important if you want to expand your audience, within the digital space. And so we're doing that, looking at keyword searches and how, we can make sure that whenever somebody is out there researching and looking up medicinal psychedelics, how are we going to be able to make sure that they are led to Psychedelic Spotlight? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring in everybody here. We want to be that hub for all news and all information and everything related to medicinal psychedelics. So being able to fortify that platform with the right analytics and the right tools that's going to increase our audience is our focus, and we're almost, by the end of the year, we'll be up to 10,000 subscribers on our newsletter. So that's moving in the right direction. And so everything is just progressing, moving along. And I couldn't be, more excited for, being able to, get Psychedelic Spotlight to where it is and where it's going to be going into next year.
I'm at home. I'm listening to this interview. I use CBD. I use CBG. Why am I listening, and why should I be intrigued about medicinal psychedelic? What makes up that component, if you would? Educate me.
Yeah, sure. So, I think we all can probably admit that, for the better part of the last several years, we as a society have been in the midst of an epidemic, of mental health conditions.
Absolutely.
Anxiety, PTSD, addiction. And, to be open, I've shared this in the past, I lost my father a little over 2 years ago after a long battle with depression and addiction. And that's really what motivated me and lit that fire inside of me to want to be able to push psychedelics in the mainstream, because there's this frustration, seeing that, we're drugs from big pharma, and treatments that have been used for the better part of the last several decades just not working anymore. They're not.
Yeah, they just got sued for billions of dollars here this week. The biggest opioid manufacturer did.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but seeing how they're falling short and they're not actually helping the people that need to be helped here. And,
right.
Seeing the potential that we have here and, how medicinal psychedelics, when incorporated into the right therapeutic programs here, can actually help people overcome their addiction, overcome their anxiety, and overcome it for good. This isn't just we're not just managing it. We're actually treating it. We're going to the source of the problem. That, to me, is really why medicinal psychedelics need to be placed on an even playing field with big pharma. And so that, to me, is where the potential exists here. And that's what separates it from other drugs and other treatments that have been utilized. So, and if anybody out there, is still skeptical, there's a ton of literature, a ton of information out there. I encourage them to go to Psychedelic Spotlight, where they can find, some good information and resources about what actually is happening here. But, it's a mission, and we're continuing to progress here, but I'm very encouraged with, getting psychedelics to where they need to be.
Let's talk about the investment community before I let you go. What steps are you guys taking right now to demonstrate to those in the investment community that your company is in fact dedicated and focused in developing a reasonable path to generating revenues?
Right. So, a lot of it, is happening behind the scenes, and I can share that, every day my focus is, again, on expanding my network here within the space. It's communicating and networking with other leaders and other companies, because at the end of the day, bringing that diversification back into Global Trac Solutions, but making sure that it fits within, what we're doing here within the medicinal psychedelic space is very important to me. I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again, we're in this for the long haul. This isn't about trying to turn a quick buck or trying to do anything, in the short term. This is a long-term, situation here with us with Global Trac Solutions in medicinal psychedelics. Again, with it being a personal mission of mine, I want to see this through. But at the end of the day, this is really about, identifying opportunities that we can incorporate into our business model that will drive sustainable shareholder and stakeholder value for the long term. So again, it's finding those opportunities that make sense for us. It's not just going out there and grabbing whatever opportunities out there. It has to make sense, and it's got to have that balance between being able to fit within our business model, lend a level of advocacy to the industry itself, and continue to push psychedelics into the mainstream, because as we help this industry grow, it trickles down. It benefits us as a company. It creates more opportunities that we can plug ourselves into. So just being cognizant of those opportunities and exploring them, and not just jumping at everything, but actually taking the time to, do our due diligence and explore everything. That's what the focus is here.
David, I want to thank you for joining me today. My guest has been Global Trac Solutions here on Stock Day. You can find them on the OTC markets under the ticker symbol PSYC. I wish you nothing but the best, and very informative, and hopefully you come back on in 40 or 50 days and give myself and my listeners an update of what's going on.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by La Jolla Media LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are for educational and research purposes. Stock Day encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional.